You are listening to the Enormocast.
If there's one thing that has been relentlessly beat into your climbing psyche, it's that off with climbing is heinous, the worst, only the realm of the truly sadomasochistic. Don't even try it, you wimps, because it's just not for you. And yet the psychos at Black Diamond have decided to up the ante, go all in, call your bluff. Use whatever gambling metaphor you want here because I'm just riffing. But anyway, those miscreant engineers have really done it this time with the number 7 and number 8 Camelots. Yep, the number 21 Camelot was a ruse, a cunning attempt to trick you. But the number 7 and number 8 are no joke. They are the biggest, baddest cams on the planet, featuring much of the pure dreaminess of the C4 line, with added beef where needed, and of course the trigger keeper for slinging them like a closed fist ready for the old 1-2 uppercut. So if, like most off-with aficionados, you've been forced into a pant-loading run for the anchors above a tipped-out 6, go check out Black Diamond's new large and in charge number 7 and number 8 at blackdiamondequipment.com or your favorite local shop. You know, once this stay-at-home thing lightens up a little bit. In this time of pestilence, do you want to reach out to your friends, loved ones, and climbing partners with more than an anxious DM sent while slurping a soggy bowl of Captain Crunch at 2 a.m.? Then why don't you hit up friend of the show, Peter W. Gilroy, and send those socially distanced friends a climbing or mountain-inspired piece of handcrafted jewelry. Or maybe one of his famous titanium tricked-out trucker caps. Yes, titanium on a hat, people. Unique jewelry, hats, money clips, belt buckles, and more amazing accessories can be had with a discount and the bonus of supporting the Enormocast. So why don't you cheer up your pals with a nice surprise that won't glitch and freeze in the middle like an annoying Zoom conversation, and go to peterwgilroy.com or splitter-designs.com to check out the wares of a great artist and also a climber just like you. And enter Enormo at checkout for the hookup.
We gotta get
Listen, where are you playing in town? You playing here?
We're doing the Enormo Dome, whatever it is. It's terrific.
Oh,
It's
yeah,
a
big
house. We
place,
sold
that
it out.
side of town. That's a
Very
big
nice.
place. You sold
What's
it
that,
out.
20,000 seats?
We
really should.
Look, you better get up there before you panic. Those pens are loose. You're very good. I have really enjoyed climbing with you. We'll make it. I don't think so. But we shall continue with style. Bad weather. Now or later, anytime for climbing.
Today's show is brought to you by Black Diamond Equipment, with support from Maxim Ropes.
And the fine folks at La Sportiva. And don't forget our charter sponsor, Bonfire Coffee. Go to bonfirecoffee.com and enter Enormo at checkout for a discount on great coffee and to support the Enormocast.
And now back to the show.
Hello and welcome to the Enormocast. This is your host, Chris Kalous. It is May 15th, about 10:30 a.m., and this is episode 198 of the Enormocast, a conversation with British alpinist Tom Livingstone. That's right, another British Tom on the podcast. They know each other. I think everyone who climbs in the UK pretty much knows each other. The place is like about as big as Delaware, right? Anyway, as long as I've got a climber from the UK on the show, I want to give a quick shout out to the folks at Third Rock, which is a sustainable climbing and yoga and active wear company over in the UK. And they sent me some pants, or as they say on their website, trousers. Love it, trousers. Anyway, they sent me some trousers and they love the show. And I just thought I'd give them a shout out. Super nice pants. They fit me right out of the bag, which is unusual in my skinny little ass orders something online. So that was super cool. I'm not sure exactly how you might get them in the States, but I suspect we'll have a bunch of UK listeners for this one since it's a hometown hero. Yeah, I sent one of the hardest cracks I've ever climbed in these pants just before the lockdown, just before the shutdown. How's that for an endorsement? It was all the pants. Had nothing to do with training or climbing ability or anything else. The pants got me to the anchors. Thanks, pants. Sustainable policies over there, small company, climbers. All my favorite things here at the Enormocast. And even though the shutdown has made them less useful, I do like pants. I still like pants. All right, when this stay-at-home thing started up, a lot of people were like, Kalous, how are you going to do this? You do the face-to-face interviews, 197 so far face-to-face interviews, and another one today. Well, luckily, I busted my ass back in February and January, and I got a whole bunch piled up like cordwood outside in my shed. And I just keep picking wood off of that pile and throwing it out there on the fire that is the Enormocast. Luckily, I still have a couple more, in fact. And we'll see what happens in another month and a half when I have to start finding someone to talk to again. And one of the cool things is these are little blissful views of pre-COVID-19 world. Remember that world some 67, 68 days ago? We were just looking forward to spring, to the ice melting, feeling great about almost everything. Well, anyhow, so that's what I'm providing for you guys, a little glimpse back into the past. I got this one down in Ouray at the Ice Festival. We went down, the entourage and I went down for just one evening and a morning, mostly for me to get this interview with Tom, actually. He was in town for the Ice Fest. So when folks from across the pond come over, I try my best to get them on the show to give you guys a little bit of a variety. And I went down there, partied all night, as we do, as the entourage does, and then got up in the morning and hooked up with Tom. Well, Tom partied all night too. So, yeah, this one was done in a bit of a haze of post-Ouray dance party late night shenanigans for both of us. Riding a little hungover on this one. I don't know if you can tell. Maybe I shouldn't have tipped my hand on that. But anyway, a nice conversation, and Tom popped onto my radar because Tom and two other partners finally climbed Laytok 1 from the north side, completing much of what Michael Kennedy, Jim Donini, Jeff Lowe, and George Lowe started and almost finished on the north ridge of Laytok. So that's when I first heard of Tom, and he's also a fan of the show. We bantered back and forth on social media, so it was great to sit down. Super fun guy, super nice guy, and really tough guy. A right wad, if you will. And we did. So let's get to it. A little glimpse of the halcyon days before the shutdown. A bright morning in Ouray, Colorado. Maybe a little too bright for our taste, actually. Tom Livingstone. We presume. Yeah, actually, I just interviewed Tom Randall,
right?
One of your compatriots.
Represent.
Yeah, and he asked me to ask you on a scale of 1 to 10. How posh you think you are.
I knew this was going to come out. I would say right from the start, I'm not posh.
Okay.
Not posh.
I don't even really know what that means in the context of what you guys
So basically,
about in the UK.
Yeah, in the UK, most of the climbing and most of the community live in the north of the country. Yeah. So like North Wales or North England.
Right.
And so they all speak like Northerners, which, is just a bit of a twang, a bit more of an accent. And just because I'm from the south, I speak more clearly the Queen's English or whatever, and so everyone immediately goes, "Oh right, you must be posh, you must be wealthy or something like that," right. Which is completely untrue.
Okay.
And just
I felt as though it was some taking of the piss that needed to be done. And if you guys, I know the whole thing there is very regional, like which storied area you're from.
Yeah,
there's the rivalries. And,
totally. Yeah.
But you're based in Wales now, right?
Yes, I'm based in North Wales, which is amazing for rock climbing. There's really, really good scene there as well. But that's kind of funny that Tom Randall said, well, how posh am I? Because he used to work in London or something,
right?
Like earning earning his millions, and I think he's got a Porsche now, like a fancy car. So yeah, I'm like a total dirtbag, and I'm pretty sure he's doing okay.
Okay, well, I'll send this back over to him for the retort on another show at some point.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. I figured it was no big deal. To bring
it's
this
good.
up.
It's like proper banter. There's a lot of abuse going backwards and forwards. And,
I bet. And I bet like in Wales, it's probably pretty tough, like scent game over there.
Yeah.
I have a little bit of a recent fascination with the Wales climbing scene.
Nice.
My friend Andrew Bishret, I would do another podcast with, the Run Out, he got invited over there and spent some time. DMM had him over and got like low to the scene and came back and told me about it. We did a podcast about it. But, for another perspective, let's start there. Let's talk about the Wales scene. Why, you're from the south of England, but that's not a climbing mecca by any means, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Not much going on down there. So obviously you've relocated to that place to be, in the scene, but why Wales specifically versus another area like a Sheffield scene or something like that?
Well, one of the best things about UK climbing is that it's all about trad, and it's predominantly all about trad, I should say, and it's predominantly all about mountain rock or about sea cliff climbing, something that's pretty unique to the UK. So North Wales has got an abundance of amazing sea cliff climbing, and it's got this great mountain rock. Lots and lots of trad climbing. Of course, there's really good like bouldering and sport climbing as well. If you're a climber in the UK, you're going to basically live in Sheffield or North Wales, kind of, broadly speaking. Sheffield's great, but it's only got the grit, which is all right. It's not that good, though. And it's got a tiny bit of like kind of okay limestone, kind of rubbish limestone. Whereas Wales has got these great mountains, it's got the sea cliffs, it's got like big beaches and stuff like that. So Wales feels like more of a rugged and more of a wild place. And definitely if you're into like pulling hard moves and techno and like bouldering, then Sheffield is great. But Wales seems to have more of like a beating heart and like much more of a wild scene for much more different types of rock as well.
And I think it feels like traditionally, historically, that's been the same too. I mean, it hasn't a lot of like, when we reference like here in the States, Chenard wrote this manifesto about taking Yosemite to the Great Peak, the Great Ranges.
Yeah.
And it felt like there was some level of that, like of the climbers coming out of Wales in the past as well. Like going to Europe and into the Alps and being kind of the hard chargers in the bigger peaks.
Yeah, exactly. There's been, like a big history of climbers coming from Wales and going on to much bigger things. As I said, it's like a great sort of stomping ground with all these different types of rock and loads and loads of good mountains as well. So tiny on a world scale, but you can quickly get your fix of like scrambling up amazing ridges or linking together loads and loads of peaks, which is plenty of challenge there to be had, which is cool.
So as a climber, we won't go all the way back to your origin story because you claim that it's not that interesting. So but as a climber, what do you think in your personality or your youth or whatever drew you that way versus like you just said, the hard pulling techno scene somewhere else?
I definitely think it's that childhood of growing up and outside. We never had a TV just for random reasons. I guess my folks weren't interested in it. And so it was always just being outside, messing around and playing and stuff like that. So for me being in Wales, it felt really natural and great fun. And I also went to uni there. I went to Bangor University, which again has got a lot of history. A lot of strong climbers have been there. And so after 3 years of being at uni, I went away and sort of travelled a bit and then thought, well, if I'm going to be based in the UK, North Wales seems to be pretty awesome. So that's kind of why I came back. But also there's this just like psych about being outside, about being in the mountains as well. These big beaches, as I said, so some occasional good surf and stuff like that. So yeah, it's just like this natural big playground, really.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about your evolution then to like I just said, like traveling out into bigger and bigger stuff, and then finally into the Karakoram and the Himalayas and that sort of thing. Can you talk a little bit about who you were as a climber initially, and what steps or what kind of the evolution to the big mountains was? Because that's always kind of interesting to me, because I didn't make it. I had designs on it. I mean, I climbed. I mean, that to me was climbing as well. Like, you learn how to rock climb, but you also learn how to mountain climb and you ice climb. And there was some point, I think I climbed a bit in New Zealand actually on those peaks, and then I think maybe moving to Southern California might have like put the end to it, and like going to Yosemite.
Fun. It's just all type 1. Yeah. Like it really does. All these trips away just make you appreciate rock climbing and just like being in the sunshine. Yeah, pulling hard moves, and you're like, oh, this is good. Yeah, I'm going to do this more.
But the question I always have is like where, that drive does, but also in a lot of ways an audacity to think that you can go and climb things. And we'll get to some of the stuff you talked about last night in your show. But looking up at these giant faces, it takes a special person to think like, I'll just go up there and see what happens. So yeah, how did that happen in your mind between, I would suppose being a rock climber, doing these scrambles, things like that, and then just like boom, 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 ending up on Laytok and things like that? I mean, that's a broad question. Yeah. But think about your motivations.
Well, special is probably the right word. Yeah, it definitely takes, I guess, a certain mindset or a certain characteristic. And I think the theme for the last maybe 10 years has been just a strong motivation, psych, whatever, just a real desire to get after it and go climbing. It's always been easy to motivate myself to go climbing in pretty much all forms. And I've always also been motivated by climbing bigger and badder things. So you can climb, a hard trad pitch in North Wales, but what about doing a hard multi-pitch and then going bigger and bigger and bigger? Naturally, of course, you will go to Scotland if you're keen on the winter climbing scene in the UK, which is a great testing ground. You just get hammered by totally shit weather all the time, and you're climbing like 100 meters in a day, and it'll take you 12 hours to climb 3 pitches, for example. So you just get absolutely blasted by the weather, and then you think, well, okay, let's do that, but bigger and bigger and bigger. And of course, you kind of go to the Alps because they're so close for UK climbers. So I guess that natural, just like having a lot of energy and then going on trying bigger and bigger things. I guess, I'm kind of motivated by the difficulty as well. So natural to want to climb one pitch of hard stuff and then, what about 2 and 5 and 10? And then, just continuing on and on and on to going on to bigger trips. If I'm left to my own devices, I'll sleep 9 till 9. So I've got like loads and loads of energy throughout the day, and then I'll just sleep like a child. Oh. Yeah, it's kind of weird, but lots of energy during the day for sure.
Nice. So in this like evolution, if we want to do it, sure. You're describing like a step-by-step thing in a lot of ways. Like, I did this. Let's try this. It's a little harder. A little harder. What do you think, you look back on your sort of career benchmarks, give me some highlights in the early years when you started getting into the bigger peaks.
Well, for sure.
What sort of told you like, wow, this is what I really want to do?
For sure. One of the best moments was climbing the Walker Spur on the Grand Duras in the Alps. So that was with Pete Graham. And Pete was totally relaxed throughout the whole 3 days that we were climbing off. I think we topped out on the 4th day, something like that. He was just super controlled in the environment, and bivvies were no big thing for him, for example. Mm-hmm. Whereas for me, it was a big step up, and it was, one of those moments where you look back and you think, oh, right, you can survive all these shit bivvies, and you can survive day after day of like hard climbing, dry tooling, stuff like that. And so it was really cool to have that experience with Pete, just to see how relaxed he was. And then another thing that was sort of cool to do was the Hal Sanderson route on Mount Alberta in the Canadian Rockies. Vince Anderson was at this talk that I did in Ouray last night, and that was really cool to see him there. And shoot the shit a bit with him, because climbing's cool how you've got these circles where you read about Steve House and Vince Anderson, these total wads. Oh yeah, wad, by the way. We need to get this word in. I was climbing with Raf Slawinski and a friend of mine, Ushjan, and Raf did a good route, and we came down and we said, "Nice one, Raf, good effort, you wad." And his buddies were like, whoa, getting all like offensive, like, "Did you just call Raf a dickwad?" We're just like, no. In the UK, it means like good climber. Wad is like,
oh really?
Well done. Yeah, like beast.
Nice.
Yeah, there's
all right.
Wad father, Crispin Waddy is and the name of a guy that maybe this thing came from. Really cool, like good way to describe someone.
Yeah,
nice one, you wad.
A climber, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, actually, I think he did something down in Kochimo when I think because he was like a world traveling first ascensionist, middle of nowhere guy.
Back in the day.
It is. I don't know if he's still around.
Yeah.
So, okay, so a wad is good.
Wad is good.
Steve House.
So you hear
Vince
about
Anderson, wads.
Okay,
great.
Total wads. Like you hear about these guys and you think, right, that's amazing. I'm never going to be able to climb something as gnarly as the north face of Mount Alberta, for example. And then you kind of read a bit more about it and you climb a few more routes and you're like, oh, right, okay. Maybe one day it'd be this like dream route. And then some friends do it, like the second ascent was by Nick Bullock and Will Sim. And I kind of knew them a little bit. So suddenly to be like, right, well, those guys did it. It's possible. It suddenly becomes a bit more tangible. And then for Ushjan and I to go to the Canadian Rockies and finally climb this thing was a really cool experience, like completing the circle, if you like, hearing about this route from these guys that you really look up to, and then going and climbing it finally over 2 days, everything going super smoothly. And like realizing what these grades mean and what this kind of climbing is. So that's definitely another standout moment, the north face of Mount Alberta. And then I guess, there's tons of trad routes in the UK that I'm like very happy that I've done, like on sites of, I'm not sure what the grades translate to, but like 5, maybe low 513, stuff like that, which just take a lot of momentum, a lot of good form. You need to be like rock climbing all summer, and then you've got these goals at the end of the summer. Really, really cool, like big pitches in Pembroke. So again, sea cliffs, things like that, where you've just got to put really good gear in and just go for it. Relatively safe routes, but requiring a lot of form, a lot of self-belief and stuff like that. But for alpine stuff, certainly the 2 trips I've done to Pakistan recently were really good fun.
Yeah, well, let's get into those then, because that's kind of my first hearing about your name, because talking to Michael Kennedy about the this North Ridge to Laytok thing has been something that him and I have talked about quite a few times. It's got this, at least in the States, I don't know if it's worldwide, but it has this like big weight to it about the magnificent failure. It's been dubbed, where him and Kennedy, Danini, Jeff Lowe, George Lowe did this sort of capsule style alpine, kind of heavy and slow, but they were out there on their own anyway. Heavy and slow compared to what we talk about with alpine climbing today, but it felt like this big leap to do something like that. That was that big and that out there. So that was when I first heard about you. Is you guys made basically a second ascent of it, which it's been standing there waiting for someone to touch it for since 1978.
Yeah, that's
77
right.
Or 78.
78. So that was amazingly impressive what those 4 guys did.
Yeah,
and it was really cool actually. Just a total name drop, but you mentioned Michael Kennedy, and I kind of had a coffee with him this morning, and it was really, really cool just to chat with him.
Well, it made me think of what you just said about Vince and Steve.
Exactly.
It's like full circle.
Yeah.
So now here you are in freaking Ouray, Colorado, chatting with the man,
Yeah, just really one of those pinch yourself moments. Really, really cool. Michael seems like such a nice guy.
Yeah.
And what they did, what George Lowe, Jeff Lowe, Jim Danini and Michael Kennedy did in 1978 was very, very impressive. And you said it was a failure, but that doesn't seem like quite the appropriate word, because they put in such a good effort over maybe 26 days and then all bailed, but safely. They all came down, and that was definitely one of those moments where I suppose they solidified the North Ridge of Latok 1 as a grand prize, if you like, of the Karakoram.
Yeah, and they were like meters from the top of the ridge, 150.
They should have got stick clip or something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they were like just couldn't stick. There was like a V7 boulder problem.
They were just working it.
Yeah. No, but they according, because I just talked to George Lowe too. It was a few pitches. And,
it sounds like they were close.
But that wasn't the top of the mountain, as we'll get into. But and then Jeff Lowe, just to put it in perspective, Jeff Lowe was getting really sick, and they basically decided that either they could keep going at the risk of his maybe eventual death if they didn't go down, and that was like the decision to start getting lower for Jeff's health. So anyway, just to put it in perspective of what we're talking about. Yeah.
Well, since then it's been tried by dozens of really strong teams, and I guess so in 2018, Alej Čežin and Lukas Traza, two good friends of mine from Slovenia, and we just got very lucky when we went to the Karakoram. I think a lot of stars have to align on these sorts of routes, and most of the time, or some of the time, it doesn't work out in the big mountains, but that's just the way it goes. We definitely wanted to climb the mountain by the fastest, easiest, most logical way, since it's never been climbed, or it hadn't been climbed from the north side. So what we did was kind of go 3/4 of the way up the North Ridge and then traverse round, skip out the crux. If in doubt, just traverse off route. And so we went round to the south side and then topped out there, and then reversed the route and came back down. So it was just a cool 7-day round trip. Again, one of those standout moments for sure.
Mm-hmm. I mean, is there any evidence of that ascent when you get up onto that route?
Of the Americans?
Yeah.
There were 2 wires which we suspected were from Brits, and that's all the only evidence we found on the route. So it was pretty cool that there was nothing else there. There were no tracks or no bivvy platforms cut from other teams or fixed gear. When we came back down on the 7th day, we went directly down this rocky ridge at the start. And that was a bit of a shame, because loads and loads of teams had tried that, and there was shit everywhere. There was loads and loads of fixed gear and like loads of anchors that just kept throwing you off. So all we wanted to do was be down on this 7th day. We're just totally wasted. But all these anchors were like throwing you off down the wrong ways, and then you'd have to do like a 30-meter wrap, then down climb a bit, and then a 60-meter wrap, and then down climb a bit. So it's just constantly like making things hard for ourselves. But just to finally get down, at the end was pretty special.
And what was the climbing like on the way up?
Yeah, I was really pleased, because it was like constantly engaging the whole way. There was no just like boring snow slopes. It was a lot of like relatively technical ground the whole way. A couple of little bulges of like little steeper sections where it was much easier without a pack. Plenty of good climbing. What I enjoy most is technical climbing. And so if you can try and get these decent rock climbs or mixed climbs, but put them at high altitude, that's what it's all about for sure.
Well, that seems like an evolution in a way that's, I mean, it's ongoing, but it's also something that's been talked about for a long time, I feel like, let's say this, like mixed climbing appeared as its own, this weird little sport, like the sport climbing style, kind of mixed climbing of, upside down figure fours. And it, always felt like there was such this divergence in, even though you're using ice tools and crampons and things, like it was a divergence from, pure ice climbing and then mixed climbing in the mountains. But, I feel like maybe that those super hyper technical things have started to creep in. I mean, nobody that I know is doing a figure four at like 3,000 yet.
I've never done a figure four yet. Right. Yeah.
But like it is sort of the hard technical end of this mixed climbing is creeping into the big mountains.
Yeah. It's amazing to be cragging and then be able to throw hard moves or be able to try hard moves. And if you can then, take that technical standard and then push it higher and higher. Mm-hmm. I mean, people have been doing it in the Alps for years and years, and people have been climbing technical routes in the big mountains for a while. But to keep pushing those standards up is it's interesting. It's good fun.
What was the reaction? I know that, it got notoriety climbing the north side of Laytok. What was the reaction? And did you feel like in the greater climbing community to the ascent?
I don't know. I guess a few friends said well done, so that's all that matters.
There was no parades or accolades or like.
I don't climb for that. Not in the slightest bit interested for that. No. Yeah, maybe there was. I'm still waiting for the fans and the Ferraris to roll in.
Oh, that's cool. I'm sure they're on their way. But and then what did Michael have to say?
Michael, I think, was very complimentary, and we exchanged a few emails. And it was interesting to hear someone say the other day, I think Julie, his wife, said last night that maybe it brought some closure for him. But I guess the full North Ridge still remains. I mean, it's there for anyone that wants it.
All right, well, let's move up to this other thing that we saw last night, which actually, as a segue, I think one of the things you pointed out in this climb, and you could tell us about the names and stuff like that in a sec, but of how you kind of did really push the weird technical standards up on this high rock, and actually, like, I thought it sort of was a blow the audience away moment when you started talking about rock shoes and like doing 512 moves on rock at however many feet. I don't know how high you guys were at that point, but
I'm not sure of the currency, but yes, 6,200 meters or something.
Right. Yeah. So talk about that, because that you talked about Laytok, but this seemed to be have captured your imagination maybe equally or more this other ascent.
Yeah. So a few months ago, I went to Pakistan again with four good friends. So it was Will Sim, Ali Swinton, John Crook, and Ushan Hawthorne, 5 Brits. And it was really cool to go on a trip like that. Loads of exploring into new areas, into the Hindu Raj, which is right in the north of Pakistan, right on the Afghanistan border. Like, one side is Pakistan and the other side of the valley is Afghanistan. And Will Sim really initiated this trip and sort of did some research. And we went to check out a mountain called Koyo Zom, which is 6,800 and something meters. It's quite high. And the most attractive line and face on this thing was like a big Matterhorn, like Toblerone, perfect triangle of snow and ice. But then the top half looked like really, really good rock climbing, sort of kind of golden granite. The sun would come around right in the evening and then just shine this wall. So it looked really, really cool, but it also looked very hard, and there was a lot of doubts about whether it would go. And then
had this mountain seen a lot of attention? Because it's like the pictures. I mean, it's an awesome looking peak. Like in terms of modern alpinism, I think what modern alpinists like yourself look for in a big mountain, it looks like, I mean, like a postcard for that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Had it seen attention otherwise, climbing wise?
No, I think the Hindu Raj had been off the radar for a while. It's been climbed twice from the easier east side in the 70s or 60s and then 70s. Also, much less traffic in the last 10 years to this area of Pakistan because you have to drive right next to the Afghanistan border. And we went down the valley, the Swat Valley, which I think is where Osama bin Laden was captured or lived or something like that. So for good reasons, people haven't been going there for a while.
Right. Yeah, I've heard of the Swat in terms of all that.
Yeah. Yeah. Kind of funny. We were thinking we were all really cool and cruising around in this Jeep driving through the Swat Valley, and we're like, yeah, really cool. But actually everyone was super friendly and there was no hostility at all in 6 or 7 weeks of traveling around Pakistan. So that was cool.
Yeah, and they're not, I mean, if you're coming in there and it hasn't seen a lot of action, then, climbers going into the Baltaro and all that sort of stuff is super
well known. It's all got this big infrastructure that's around like supporting these climbers and making money off of that and everything else. Was it like kind of alien zone being down in this area as climbers?
I don't think it's received much attention. I think there are occasional trekkers and stuff like that that go into the region in the last year or two. And actually a French team were there in the spring, which we were really surprised about. We kind of thought, oh, great, this area that nobody's been to for ages, really cool. And then some French dudes just were like, oh, yeah, we've just come back from there. And we're like, oh, maybe it's not so wild after all. But yeah, it was great to go with these guys and to finally see Koyozom, this mountain that we've been thinking about for months, because, yeah, you don't really know what it's going to look like. We had a fairly decent photo from someone, so we had a good idea of where we might want to climb, but still it was really cool just to quest into the wilds of Pakistan, as you say, off the beaten track from the main areas that people go alpine climbing.
And so what does your expedition look like? Just the four of you carrying everything? Are you using porters?
There's 5 of us, and we
5. Sorry,
yeah. We drove for a couple of days up these like 4x4 tracks, and finally kind of like stopped the car and looked across the valley, and there's Koyozom. So it was pretty roadside in terms of approach, which is nice. Really
like
good.
Rifle. Yeah,
exactly.
Get out of the car, start climbing.
Just like rifle. Yeah, if you could belay in the car, that'd be even better. Yeah. We like asked some locals, and they carried our stuff up for like a couple of hours so that we could get as close as we could to getting a good base camp. It's kind of funny that in these really, really remote valleys with no phones and like everyone's living from subsistence farming, we're like, well, how are we going to find 20 locals to help us carry our junk the next morning? And our kind of fixer guy was just like, yeah, everyone will know. People have been like, the word has been funneling up the valley before we even came into this place that some gringos were arriving and there's some work to be had. So lo and behold, first thing in the morning, there's like donkeys and loads of local guys who are just like picking up our bags and start walking up the hill. Right. And we're just like, oh, right, everything's sorted already. Yeah. But we basically felt really kind of nervous about putting our tents up in this nice little flat meadow with good views of the mountain. But there were little like stone huts from shepherds that were up there for the summer season, you know, like seasonaires. So we were thinking, oh, this might be a bit rude, this might be a bit insensitive, but the local fixer guys were just like, yeah, no, it's all good. We'll just like stick our tents in these guys' front garden. And
right.
These little kids have come out and they've never seen a white person before, and they're running around and initially a bit shy, and the women are all in their like traditional dresses and things. So yeah, it was really cool from that perspective as well. These trips are often as much about the places you're going through and the good mates that you're going with. And of course, like 5 Brits, we're all just like total gringos, and nothing's taken very seriously. It's all just a good laugh. It's pretty cruisy.
Yeah. So then you guys have to do like days and days of acclimatizing, which is like moving and then just chilling, right?
Yeah, acclimatizing kind of sucks. You just basically got a big headache for like 3 or 4 days. So that's like the worst part about alpine climbing. And in this instance, it was nice to have five of us there. We could just like banter backwards and forwards and check out the mountain from a bit closer, like play loads of chess and just generally, hang out.
Listen to techno.
Oh, there's a lot of techno, for sure. So Ustjan likes techno bagpipes, which still I can't get used to, even though I've been on like, I don't know, countless trips with him. He's got this weird like dance techno bagpipe.
Is he Scottish?
He's Scottish. Oh, right. Yeah, he's Scottish. That's why he's got this crazy name.
Ustjan.
Yeah. It's written like Usdeen.
Usdeen.
But imagine you're Scottish and you're saying, "Hey, you, Ustjan, get to fuck."
The accents, man, coming out.
Yeah, I've got terrible accents, but I do like the sound of like accents and stuff.
Right.
Yeah. I can't play like a musical instrument to save my life, but yeah, I quite like...
You like the musicality of accents.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and same with techno. If it's like a really good like rhythm or really good pumping beat, then yeah, it's cool.
I just always, I mean, it's like the Brits and the Euros too. I freaking love the techno. Like, love it. Yeah. It's like money. But So let's get back to the to approaching the mountain and then deciding what to climb. You were talking, we got a little off track from that, but we were talking about how you had this sort of line that had some audacity to it in terms of a question mark of getting through what was a very steep looking rock way up high.
Yeah. And of course, being 5 of us, it probably wouldn't be practical to climb as a team of 5. So we were kind of all just very open to the idea of climbing whatever we could. Sometimes on these trips, like I went to India shortly after one Pakistan trip, and we just sat in a tent for like 4 weeks with really bad weather. So sometimes you can just get really unlucky with the weather or illnesses. And on this trip, unfortunately, so on the recent Pakistan trip, there was a bit of illness. We all had a bit of weird stomachs and things, but Will and Ujjan kind of got a bit sick for a few days. And so they kind of missed out on some acclimatization. And basically when it came to us trying to all sit down and say, right, well, we're all kind of ready. We've got maybe 10 days left on this trip. So now's the time to go climbing. Will, Ujjan and John, they all said they were keen for more of this left-hand line of Koyozom, which looked a little bit easier. There's potential for them to acclimatise whilst they're on the route. So Ali and I were obviously psyched for this right-hand line, even though we didn't know if it would go. And yeah, there was a big question mark about it, but we thought we've come all this way, and so we might as well give it a go. So yeah, there was that usual faff of like just gear strewn everywhere, and we're like, shall I take these pairs of socks or these pairs of socks? And it's like, oh, this one's lighter and this one's better, and so it just goes on for like a whole day. But by the end of it, Ali and I had 2 giant rucksacks. Sorry, backpacks. And
oh yeah, but that's just the first taste of your American accent.
Oh right, yeah, well, there you go. Yeah, right on. Yeah. Yeah, so Ali and I were basically psyched, and we thought we'd give this thing a go, and so we did.
And that's it. There's nothing really to talk about on the climb.
Nah,
just like little crimp here, undercling there, side pull there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and then you get kind of pumped and out of breath because you're at altitude and you sit on a cam.
No, I'm not letting you off the hook. So if I recall, you climbed up really gigantic snow, really steep snow with your backpacks on.
Yeah, first day. Yeah, get that boring stuff out of the way. And then from then on, it was basically the business for a couple of days. We had, I don't know, like 500 or 600 meters of this big rock head wall. There were some really cool like mixed climbing corners, dihedrals and gullies and things like that we were going through, so that you could like dry tool with your axes, hooking them over like glued in flakes, and like with your hands you could like hang on to these big spikes and stuff and kick your crampons into snow and ice. So really cool climbing. And thankfully we could tag the bags up so that we weren't climbing with packs, because it's kind of sucks to be climbing with heavy packs, as I'm sure you know. And I think day 2, getting a really cool classical like bivvy platform, just this little snow ridge, just about wide enough for the tent. And then day 3, questing through this head wall, which we just thought, well, shit, this belongs in North Wales on the sea cliffs. It's really, really wild, really exposed. I could see kind of a way through, and full credit to Ali. He was like, yeah, let's just keep having a look, see what we can see. And I was kind of inside, I was a bit dubious that this thing would go, but luckily the sun was kind of coming round onto the face, and so it was a tiny bit warmer in the afternoon. And I had some rock shoes. Ali didn't bring his. Good call. So I was like, okay, I guess I'll give it a go. I remember saying to like Ali, I think he's been to the States a bit and done some big walling or aid climbing. And I was like, have you got any advice for how to aid climb? Sat underneath this like giant head wall, being like, oh, aid climbing 101. Okay, here we go. And so basically a couple of pictures later, we managed to find this really kind of faint weakness going through this giant overhanging head wall. It was really cool that you could put relatively good gear in this nice like golden granite, sit on it every now and again because you've got a big headache, but yeah, trying to do decent free moves. And anytime you got a loose rock, I could like wiggle it out, and I quite enjoy like just trundling and stuff like that. So wiggling out a rock and chucking it over your shoulder, and it would just free fall all the way down. And you could kind of bridge out so that you could get your hands off and like get a hands off rest, but have this really wild exposure, just thinking, shit, we're at 6,200 meters. We're in the middle of nowhere in Pakistan. It's just the two of us, but yeah, we're questing.
Right, and you're like no gloves.
Yeah,
like
yeah,
rock
fully
shoes,
bare hands, like rock shoes,
rock climbing.
Yeah, fully rock climbing. Yeah, it was really, really good fun. I mean, I don't know about the grade and stuff like that, but yeah, I was like pretty pumped and stuff like that by the end of a couple of pitches.
Yeah, I mean, it was like, for me, it was a point in your presentation where I was just like, kind of like, what the fuck is going on here? Like, because I mean, the fact that you had rock shoes at all seems like a bit of a, I don't know, either some optimism, but also I just don't know that to be like standard gear. In the pack I mean, that you even had them on the whole trip.
Well, there's some decent base camp bouldering to be had for sure. Okay. Yeah. We don't want to lose all the fitness.
Yeah, so I guess I guess that is kind of, that part's a little bit standard for some of these trips but to throw them in the pack when you're like, you know, trying to cut down to like just the right amount of goose and whether one pair of socks heavier than the other, and then I'll just throw these rock shoes in here. It's kind of wild.
Well, I guess it's a combination of things. The first is to always be optimistic.
Right.
And I guess, that's part of my personality, perhaps, just to be like, psyched and optimistic. And the second thing is is because we were looking at this giant head wall for a week whilst acclimatizing. And we were like, well, that looks really, really steep rock climbing. If there's anything that's going to stop us, it's probably that. Mm-hmm. But if there's one thing that allows us to go through this thing, it's going to be rock shoes and a decent rack. So that's why we had a set and a half, or maybe even a double set of cams, which is a huge amount to take on an alpine route. Yeah, a set of wires and pins and things like that. So yeah, we kind of knew that we were up for a fight, and we wanted to stack the odds in our favour as much as we could. Sure. But you're right, it was a bit wacky to be packing rock shoes and thinking, well, shit, am I going to like try and do some bare hands emergency crimping and just get frostbite on my fingers?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, and you had the nice, those moments in the sun, but you couldn't climb in the shade like that.
No, it was really, really cold in the shade, yeah. So we were wearing like big down jacket and synthetic pants whilst seconding a block in the shade, for example.
Right.
Yeah, really cold. Nice to have the sun come round. I mean, that's one of those kind of lucky things. If it had just been like slightly more north facing and it didn't really get much sun, then I guess we would have had to have just aided through that section, but it might have taken like an extra day or two, maybe.
Mm-hmm. And then your partner was following. You guys weren't following with Jumars. He was following it.
No, I've never Jumared in the mountains and
in his mountain boots.
Yeah. Ali pulled like fully double duty because he was seconding these pitches in his big boots and crampons, plus he had my big boots and crampons like swinging off the back of his harness as well. So good effort from Ali there.
Nice. And so you guys topped it out.
Yeah, on day 5 we got to the top. Really.
And you're getting are you getting weather? Well, I mean, getting weather reports.
Weather event. That's something that you guys say. It's like, there's been a wind event. We're just like, what? It's windy. There's been a weather event. Yeah, we've got a little Garmin InReach Mini, so we can get texts every now and again just to say the weather's looking good when you go. Yeah, amazing to get to the top on like really, really clear day. You could see Tajikistan, China. You're in Pakistan. You can see Afghanistan. It's the highest Ali's ever been. It's his first trip to this area as well. So yeah, really, really cool to like be on top of this thing. I was hoping for some sort of Euro, all 5 of us. So the other guys had come up the other side ideally, and then we'd all like 5-way high five, and then we just walk down. But yeah, unfortunately, Will, Ushjan and John, they found the route to be way harder than expected, and so they were also feeling the altitude as well, so they bailed. But yeah, cool for Ali and us to get to the top and then cruise down the easier east side and just like slump onto the glacier in the evening of day 5, I think it was. And we knew all we had to do was just walk down to base camp. It was like drop 2,000 meters of altitude, and it would be a pretty gnarly glacier, but basically all the technical climbing was done. So, yeah, it felt good to get there.
And then?
And then the next
Then you got
day,
a little overconfident and like, oh, we'll be down in a little while.
Well, yeah, I don't think we were overconfident on the 6th morning, because we started walking down, we were roped up, we were super hungry and kind of running lower on food and gas and stuff like that. So it was, pretty gnarly to weave through these crevasses and things. I'm pretty terrified of these things anyway. You know, like when you can see the snow and it just has kind of sagged a bit in the heat of the day. And so you think, well, it's probably a snow bridge over a giant crevasse, and you're just terrified, like crawling across these things. Really grim experiences. And I think with crevasses and like walking on glaciers, it's not very enjoyable in anyway, but a friend has got a good theory where you like get more and more confident and more and more like blasé about this, like just like walking over crevasses and things like that, and you might like step a foot in every now and again and you're like, whoa, a bit scared, but generally you get more and more confident, and then you like fall in one and like, whoa, you get terrified again, and from that moment you're like really, really nervous and tiptoeing around again, and then you do a few more days worth of walking on them and you get more and more confident again, and on it goes. But yeah, so Ali was very unlucky to basically fall in a crevasse, and he kind of rattled down a bit and hit his head and his leg on the way down. And I was able to stop him with the rope and set up a little pulley system, a crevasse rescue, and pull him out. And for some reason I thought he'd be totally fine and we'd just like carry on walking down. But Ali had put his helmet on in the crevasse because there were all these terrifying like stalactites, icicles of like hanging down. And then he got his helmet and like threw it onto the snow as he popped up, and it like broke it had broken into 3 pieces. So yeah, I was immediately like, oh shit, this is not good. And it turned out he had a big cut in his head, so there was quite a lot of blood there. I couldn't really see how bad the cut was, but I figured like a head injury is not a good thing anyway. And I was a bit worried about internal bleeding on his leg. It seemed to just be bruised and something like that, but no bones sticking out or anything like that. So it was all okay. But basically we knew that even if we could wait for a couple of days, we'd then have to get down to base camp, and then Ali probably still needed to go to a hospital quite quickly. The fact that he couldn't walk meant that perhaps we could like hobble or drag him or something like that. But still then, if I fell in a crevasse or he fell in another crevasse, that would just kind of be a bad idea. So I was kind of aware of the situation, the fact that we're in a remote region in Pakistan, perhaps or hopefully we're going to get rescued. We're kind of at 5,900 meters and the helicopters can't really fly much higher than that. And Ali seemed to be Ali is a tough guy and he's got a tough head. So it was really lucky that it wasn't worse. I got our little Garmin InReach thing out and pressed the SOS button, because I've been always wondering what happens when you press this. And I was thinking like, yeah, international rescue, here we come, this is going to be great. And I pressed it and nothing happened. It was just like a message came through that said, are you sure? And I was like, yes, definitely sure. We definitely want a rescue. And unfortunately, the helicopters, because they were miles away, they couldn't come and get us. So in the first evening, it was suddenly like kind of getting cold and getting dark. And I think Ali got really cold and perhaps his kind of condition was deteriorating a bit. So that was a bit scary because, yeah, it felt pretty intense just to make sure he was okay. I'm sure he would have done everything that I did just to try and look after him and make sure he was all right. But thankfully, yeah, it was a long night and it was pretty intense. But thankfully, by the early hours of the morning, his condition had improved quite a lot. And we sort of sat in a tent waiting for the sound of these helicopters to come and get us, which was, yeah, again, quite a long wait. But yeah, Ali, by the end of it was, or sort of by the second afternoon was generally like on good form mentally. He was totally all there and stuff. So it felt like we just had a strange juxtaposition, because we'd climbed this amazing route. We'd quested up this wall that we didn't really know if it would go. It felt like it was just Ali and I and the only people in the world. It was really, really cool to get to the top and then to have this rescue and the accident. Yeah, a real juxtaposition between the two experiences. And finally the helicopters came, and Ali jumped in one, and then they flew off, and I sat on our bags, and I was like, I hope the helicopter's coming back. Thankfully, they cruised back, and there's always two of them, and for some reason, I said, well, why do you have two? And the pilot said, well, if one helicopter crashes, the second helicopter can rescue first helicopter. You think, oh, great, very confidence inspiring. But yeah, Ali got stitched up in a Pakistani hospital. It's pretty entertaining that there's like kind of the power going off, and there's a guy with his phone putting the light on and then playing music and stuff like that, and the doctors are like stitching up the big cut in his head. So real, again, surreal experience to be in the mountains for so long, just the two of you, totally relying on each other, and like basically no more than 60 meters apart for 6 or 7 days, and then suddenly to be back in civilization, stinking because you're wearing your mountain clothes. You've been helicoptered all the way onto the other side of the range, so we didn't know where or what was going on with the other guys in our like base camp team.
Did they know that you had been rescued?
Yeah, so we were able to communicate in a really like
in the inReach.
Lengthy way, yeah, via the inReach, yeah. But we were all just like scattered all over the place.
Sure.
The other guys had been in one helicopter to try and rescue us, but the helicopter wasn't like a high altitude one, so they'd gone back to an army base. Ustjan was left in base camp, so we were all just like thrown to the far corners of this range, and then finally getting back together again in Islamabad. Yeah, it was pretty surreal.
Right. And they got all your stuff out and the whole thing, cleaned it up.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting perspective, like you said, to just suddenly be alone in the world, and then all of a sudden, the sort of the swarm sort of comes
real
in
culture shock. Yeah. And it was a bit unpleasant as well with the news. We were getting hassled a lot for trying to give a story, and still just the other day actually I had an email from like the BBC saying, can we make a program about this? And I just am not that interested in that. So it was a bit annoying as well to get like hassled with all these weird news reports that people would just publish anyway in the papers or online, that was basically completely factually incorrect, and for us all just to be like, well, I was getting calls from the press and stuff like that.
Right.
Yeah, I guess bad news is stuff that sells.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So this was just when? Just last year?
Yeah, this was September and October.
Oh, just
2019.
Recently, so a few months ago.
Yeah.
And I mean, so you get back to home. As far as just the post kind of analysis, not even analysis, but reflection, do you think it changed anything for you, the way you look at the mountains or how you're climbing, or having this, I mean, it ended up not being necessarily a totally near-death experience, but in the moment you thought it probably was. Well, for your partner anyway.
Yeah, I was chatting with, again, Michael Kennedy after this, and he was saying that you might process these sorts of things for weeks or months or even years afterwards. I think I have renewed my fear of glaciers and crevasses.
You're back up on the top of that scale.
Yeah, terrified again.
Right.
And I think I should wear a helmet when I'm walking on we should all wear helmets when I'm walking on a glacier. I don't think we relaxed on the descent. Obviously, people say the descent is one of the most dangerous parts, and I don't think we were too relaxed.
Well, it sounds like the system worked.
Yeah,
you were able to get him out of the crevasse, like just the way the books tell you that.
Yeah, yeah. Good thing I YouTubed that 10 years ago.
Right.
For a second, I was like,
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's pretty normal in like backcountry skiing and a lot of things where you learn it
sort of, and then, it can be years. A lot of people go a long time without like doing beacon drills and stuff.
So I guess this reiterates.
And I think that's it. With glacier travel, I know a lot of people that don't necessarily keep it sharp.
Yeah, it's reiterated the fact that I should really practice like first aid and avalanche rescue and learning more about snow conditions, things like that. Because when you need to use it, you've got to know what to do. Another thing that's interesting is the scale of the rescue, because we didn't fully appreciate the number of people involved, from like UK Foreign Office to global rescue insurance people, the Pakistani consulate and embassies and things like that. So this huge amount of people were involved, and it was just crazy to be in this weird hospital in the middle of Pakistan. Ali was just getting stitched up, and then the phone rings in the hospital, and the guy's like, "Oh, it's for you." And it was some sort of global rescue, either the insurers or like the UK Foreign Office that was kind of helping organize these things. So it's just bizarre how this phone can ring in the hospital, and they're like, "Let me speak to the gringo." And they're like, "All right, yeah.
There he is, yeah.
They're over there." And same with a taxi driver. We took this massive taxi from Gilgit to Islamabad, and suddenly the taxi driver's phone rings, and he's like, "Oh yeah, Ali, it's for you again." This is like a day or two later. It's just bonkers how people can track each other down. The agent had booked this taxi guy, and so the agent had his number. Yeah, amazing what you can do with technology these days.
Right. Well, I mean, and it's like, I think it's been a discussion, in the last, I don't know, probably decade or more, or maybe it's always been this discussion about, how things change in the mountains with technology. Like the weather report thing is, I've talked to Donini and a lot of these folks that are just like, it's just so much different now when you have like weather and technology. Have you ever been one of these people that, is sort of a bit of a Luddite about those intrusions into the mountaineering experience, which is something that even our friend Hayden, he kind of was ambivalent about the purity of it all. Is that something that you think about at all, or is it just this is modern mountaineering? And I feel like it almost in this day and age is almost negligent to not be prepared when it's that easy to have it all with you.
Yeah, there's some interesting points. I guess firstly, it must have been really wild to have quested into the mountains in the 70s, 80s, 90s without communications or weather reports. So it's pretty impressive. And I guess a lot of the time people just suffered through the weather. I guess that's why they often climbed in that sort of more reserved style, like sort of siege style. Well,
that was totally the concept on in the 78 or 77, 78 late talk is that we'll go up here with enough stuff to sit through the weather.
Exactly. Yeah. Because they didn't have information that could help them out. So it must have been cool to be away from things as well. Nowadays, it's, yes, as you say, almost negligent not to take some sort of communication device. And there was a really cool interview with Rollo Garibotti. He was saying, in Patagonia now, if you don't take some sort of communication device, you're basically making things really hard for yourself and everyone else if you get into trouble. And previously, I've generally enjoyed being in the mountains to get away from all these things, and I still do. I don't often take a phone with me when I go climbing, if it's like multi-pitch climbing or cragging. If I go for a run or a big hike in the mountains for a day or two, I will very rarely take my phone or any form of communication device, because I like to be outside and not be looking at my phone all the time. So it is a tricky thing to weigh up. I basically think if it's a relatively unserious situation or unserious consequences, I will be the first person not to take a phone or a communication device. I'll probably take a camera, for example, but that's about it. That'll be for pictures. And on big routes, you do really want a forecast, and you do really want a form of communication just in case something happens. And like you say, you'd kind of be negligent not to take it.
Well, my perspective is that they're going to come look for you. It's not like you could in any way, shape, or form, sign an agreement that if I disappear in the mountains, leave me there, and tomb me in the ice. And so it's like if you don't have a way in which to make it easier for them being this like army of people that ended up dealing with your rescue, you're risking. They're going to come one way or the other. And the more easy you make it for them, the less risk it is for them. And that's kind of what I see as the sort of like, it's great. And you want to go up there and have this mountain experience. But I feel like, your people at home are going to be wondering where you are. So you're putting all these people outside of your experience through something that in some ways could be very dangerous, because suddenly maybe the rescue gets really weird because they don't exactly know where you are.
Yeah, exactly. There's all
if you didn't
sorts
come
of
back,
ways.
they're going to come look.
Yeah, there's all sorts of ways that it can play out. But if you don't have something, you are, leaving it a lot more to chance, for example.
Ali has recovered.
Yeah.
Good.
Very lucky and very glad it's all ended well in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, and he's still psyched.
Yeah, I think Ali's a strong guy. And like I said, he's got a tough head, so I think it's all good.
Yeah, so do you imagine a reunion in the mountains with this crew?
Yeah, for sure. It'd be really cool.
Yeah.
It'd be good to go climbing with those guys again. In February and March, I'm going to go to the Alps, and Ali and Will and John will be there. So, I'll definitely hang out with them. And then in April, I'm hoping to go to Alaska with Ushton, or planning to go to Alaska with Ushton.
Right. A.K.A. Steve.
A.K.A. Steve, yeah. So the story of Steve, which is really good, is that we go through all these little checkpoints, and you have to give your passport. This is in India and in Pakistan on trips that I've been with him. And they give the passports back at the end. They sort of copy them all out. It feels like a very strange exercise. Some guys like writing out your passport number, not even just scanning it or anything. And it's like, here's your passport back, Tom. And then here's your passport back, Will. And then he gets to Ushton, and it's just like a scramble of letters. Use Dean. And he kind of goes, Steve? And from that moment on, we're like, brilliant.
He's Steve for forever now, I think. Yeah.
For sure.
Awesome. And then they were probably down with Ali too, right?
They were really psyched, because obviously it's a very common name in Pakistan. So they say, Ali, are you Muslim? And he says, no, I'm from Scotland. Oh, can I have a visa? Really cool. It's good to put things in perspective on these trips, because you realize how lucky we are to live in the UK or America, for example. We've got everything pretty well sorted in the grand scheme of things, and certainly traveling to these countries makes you appreciate, how lucky we are in life.
Let me ask you one last question about, I guess it's kind of related to the story you just told, and kind of risk. There's been a bit, at least within alpinism circles in the U.S. recently, about sort of risk reward, with quite a few tragedies in the last couple of years, in terms of pushing this sort of light and fast thing, and just pushing levels in the mountains. We were kind of talking about it throughout this show, that it's something that you enjoy doing, like challenging yourself again and again, a little bit more is something that's interesting to you. But you're super optimistic, like you just said, you're super motivated, you're a super hard charger, and sometimes it's easy to not reflect on those things, and depends on your personality as well. But in terms of the scheme of like light, fast, like this kind of super alpinism, do you have a perspective on whether we're talking about odds, or are we talking about just the normal scheme of things with accidents happening in the mountains, or is there like a push that maybe getting people into trouble more so than they ought to be?
That's a really interesting and perhaps a deeper question. You could say that the climbers, certainly British climbers in the 1990s, they called themselves the generation that nearly climbed themselves into extinction.
Oh, right.
And they were pushing really, really high standards. Perhaps it was the 80s and 90s, actually, pushing these standards, going lighter and faster on these bigger mountains, 8,000 meter mountains around the world, and pioneering styles like night naked. So they were climbing throughout the night, and then resting in the heat of the day. and climbing amazing things in 48 hours, for example. So amazing things have always been done and standards have always been pushed. And you could argue that some of the things that people did in the 80s and 90s have not been pushed further in today's standards. You could also say that people have been having accidents, unfortunately, in the mountains for a long time. We perhaps have had a recent really bad few years with friends dying in the mountains, and yet you can talk a lot about this, and it can get quite deep, because you could say perhaps it's just a question of odds, and eventually you're just going to get unlucky in the mountains. It's an environment that is inherently complete chaos, and it's tumbling out of control, and you'd be foolish to think that you can do anything to control it. Rocks can fall, storms can come out of nowhere, things like that. But I guess people will always climb in the mountains because of the things we enjoy about it. Is the views or the bants, all that sort of stuff. There's no good answer to like, why do people climb? I think I will always, or I hope to always enjoy climbing in the mountains. And I know that you can't keep pushing these sorts of things. You have to hit a personal ceiling at some point. But I enjoy these sorts of activities, so I will keep doing them for as long as I enjoy them.
Have you ever felt like, have you been in a situation where you were like, this is maybe one step too far?
Yeah, once or twice with these sorts of things. You try and avoid those situations, of course, and I try and stack the odds in your favor or be super conservative. But no, ultimately, when you're pushing these things, yeah, you think, shit, don't fall off here.
I guess that's a good philosophy and a good place to end the podcast.
Sure. Yeah. You can't fall off if you don't let go.
Yeah, exactly. Right on. Well, cool. Well, good luck. And I look forward to finding out what the next, the big things that you get done are. And I appreciate you getting in touch and coming on the podcast.
Well, thanks very much. It's been great. Right on.
All right, folks. Thanks for checking this one out. And thanks to Tom for sitting down. Right wad, that guy. Actually, I don't know if he's a wad or not. I don't think you get to be a wad until the climbing community gets together and votes on it. You can't declare yourself a wad. Wadness does not come from looking in the mirror and just agreeing with yourself. I don't think wadness comes from inside. It comes from out. It's bestowed upon you. Anyway, good luck pursuing waddom, Tom. All right, can you guys hear that dog barking? Is it coming through? Jesus. Do dogs bark in the UK? Do they have barking dogs there? I bet your dogs just look over their teacup with quiet looks of stoic disdain and don't bark at all. Paradise. All right, I'm getting too far out on this limb. Folks, remember, if you want to help out the podcast, if you dig what I do and want to help sustain, go ahead and check out the Help Out page over at Enormocast.com. A bunch of things you can do to help out the podcast, including donate some money to the cause from what are probably dwindling funds of your own. Yeah, maybe not the best time to beg for money, right? But if you can spare something, that'd be awfully sweet of you to give me $1 or $2. And the shop is down. The shop is down. The shop was like slowing my website down so much, and I couldn't figure out how to deal with it and didn't have the time, and I don't make much off of it anyway. Plus, I was running out of merchandise. So maybe as this thing opens back up and I can get some t-shirts or something to restock, I'll start the shop back up. I do have a few things. So if you're looking for a gift for somebody or something, just email me and maybe we can come up with a deal. Koozies anyway. So most places have a bit of a yellow light to go climbing. A lot of places do, maybe not the parks, but local crags and things. There are recommendations from the AAC, from the Access Fund, about how to do that in a proper COVID-19 world. There are some concessions that you need to make. as far as being around other people and climbing on the same things and crowding crags. So check those out. And if you do get out there, remember to respect one another, respect each other's space, what we're trying to get done here with keeping this virus at bay. And of course, remember to check your knot.
No, my head kind of hurts.
Yeah, I like that too.
I need to put some sunglasses on, even though we're inside.
There you go.
Oh, this is good. Yeah. Oh dear, we should do a halftime break.
The posh coming out right there.
Hey, you were talking about Spice Girls last night.
That's because
Spice.
that actually was because that was going to be my question, but then Simon blew it and stole it from me. That was going to be my opener
for today.
Yeah. Because of the Randall thing.
Oh yeah, of course. This is all that Americans think of. Think of Brits. You've got the Queen, you've got the Spice Girls.
Queen, Spice Girls, football.
Yeah.
Football hooligans.
Yeah. Lads.
Yeah, totally. So, all right. What the hell?